Ohio. Mr. Stivers is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I would like to thank Mr. Stevens for what FHA's done to adjust their risk pricing and modernize the agency a little bit. I do have a couple specific questions for Mr. Stevens about FHA with regard to condominiums. You changed your rules last year with regard to spot approvals, with regard to concentration, and with regard to having at least 50% of the units pre-sold, and I know that's reduced your concentration in condominiums. I know condominiums were part of the problem, but I've heard from some constituents in my area that we have a lot of bank-owned condos, and now it's really hard to get financing for those, and they're stuck in sort of limbo because, you know, the bank took it back. Now you can't get an FHA loan, you can't get a conventional loan, and therefore, you know, those condos are sort of stuck. Has FHA and anybody on the panel sort of looked at that issue, and is there a way out of that? Because obviously we need to get those properties in productive use.
And Congressman, I very much appreciate the question, and it's an area that we've spent an extraordinary amount of time focusing on. I think, as you may know, we actually put a temporary extension in. We've now done it for 2 years in a row to provide more lenient policies to the condominium market. Keep in mind, most of this relates to new condominium approvals.
Right.
We are currently one of the few institutions that will insure a condominium, particularly at a high loan-to-value. Most of the private insurers will not engage in this market, and so we're the sole source provider. And FHA has experienced some fairly significant losses on condominium buildings that went completely belly up during this last economic crisis. But we also recognize that condominiums are an entry point for first-time homebuyers often. In underserved communities, it's really important we provide that service. It's a difficult position that we are in to be responsible to the taxpayer and make sure we're providing needed liquidity. I meet frequently with the National Association of Realtors and the home builders, mortgage bankers who will constantly want to discuss these policies. I'm very open to discuss them. Today we have, I've given temporary extensions to policies at much more lenient levels because of the concerns you have, but I would be very interested
Sure.
in any insight or input that you or your staff would like to
I do have some input. Sorry, wow, that's really loud. Is there some flexibility we could give you to charge risk-based pricing on those condominiums that are obviously different because your risk is higher than other places? And I know currently you don't offer a lot of differentiation. Have you looked at that as a way to offset that?
You know, Congressman,
and
I
have
haven't
people
looked-
pay for what they need?
We've been looking at ways to implement a risk-based pricing pilot as we were authorized to do by Congress. Actually, it's an interesting idea. It's one I'd like to go back and look into, and I'd be glad to follow up with you on how and if we could do something like that.
And I'd love it if you could follow up with me in my office, because it's impacting a lot of our districts, but especially again on whole projects that have fallen into bank foreclosure now. If over 50% of them are leased, it's just hard. They can't get private financing. They're having trouble getting FHA financing. I sympathize with folks trying to get that property in productive use. So that was the thing I really wanted to get out of today's hearing, because I heard from a constituent on this issue and wanted to follow up on it, and I'd love to follow up with you. I yield back the balance of my time, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you.